Let's all go to the lobby, lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the. Let's all go to the. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the. Let's all go to the. Let's all go to the lobby.
What is up, real boys and girls? This is another episode of the One Reel In podcast, but a special version in which we are embarking upon because it is yet again Not So Sober October.
October, baby.
Which means we will be enjoying beers. We're trying to stick to beers. It's getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
That are 10% and above, which is a tall hill to climb. That being said, today we have Marco Dupa, as always.
What up, what up?
Who has so kindly brought us the Gulden Draak.
Gulden Draak.
Does that say 1,000 quadruple?
I think that says 9,000.
9,000 quadruple.
Let's Google that, make sure.
Yeah.
That's not the 1,000
You
quad.
handle the beer in this one,
Okay.
since you brought it. But we're not here to review the brew in this episode, or any One Reel In episode. We're here to review a movie. And the movie we are reviewing for Not So Sober October, if you don't know, not only does it involve scary, high ABV, but also scary movies. So we're doing a set of horror movies for the month, and the first one we're embarking upon is called Longlegs.
Longlegs. You knew we had to start with this one.
Yeah. Got a lot of buzz, directed by Oz Perkins, who is horror royalty, son of Anthony Perkins, who is famous from Psycho. Came out this year, 2024. Runs an hour and 41 minutes, starring Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe.
It is 9,000.
It's
The Gulden Draak 9,000 quad. So
We'll get right into that after this.
no, the music plays first.
And we're back.
Right. So this is the Gulden Draak
I don't want to talk about it.
9,000 quad, an exceptionally golden amber quadruple ale. So just a classic Belgian dark, which I find it funny. That's an exceptional golden amber. Well, let's take a look at the golden amber ale.
Ooh,
It is a really nice color.
that's quite pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think the thing is, like you said at the top, it's going to be pretty difficult to start getting. I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And you guys can go back and listen to other October episodes where we do Not So Sober October. And
It's always a fun challenge for us, obviously, with the high ABV.
absolutely.
And me trying to talk about the entire synopsis of a film. Yeah. It's a good time.
It's becoming increasingly hard to find retail beers that are above like 10-11%.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try. We always had a rule that we wouldn't do meads or any kind of like beer cocktail things.
Yeah.
But
Wines.
this year we might have to break into the weird stuff.
You guys let us know what you think. I think we could possibly start teetering into meads, especially because there's a local meadery, so we can try some, local flavors.
Yeah.
But if
Otherwise, I feel like we keep trying.
sure. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there may be something in the fridge that we've had for a while that is
Oh yeah, that's
up
right.
there.
Okay.
So maybe we'll end with that, but I'm not gonna spoil it.
I might have to go to Total Wine too and see what they got out there.
We'll see. You guys recommend stuff for us though, because we don't really know. We've
Yeah.
been around the block a while, but like Marco was saying, it's kind of hard to find new things. That being said, here, happy Not So Sober October. It's gonna hurt later. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into Longlegs.
Longlegs.
So I decided to go a little bit different this time, this review. After some soul searching.
Oh.
I've realized that when I write down my rambling synopses of these movies, it just doesn't really feel authentic to me.
Okay.
So I want to really freestyle this, and I want you to challenge me to complete the overall storyline for Longlegs in 1 minute.
In a minute?
1 minute. Give me
Okay.
60 seconds on the clock.
Okay.
One thing I will ask for is when we get to 10 seconds, just give me a little, let me know. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Just tell me when.
Okay. Well, I'm watching the timer here. I'll give you a countdown in 5,
Okay.
4,
All right.
3,
La 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 la.
2, 1. Hit it.
Longlegs is about a serial killer, but there's much more going on than you may think. Micah Monroe starts as Lee Harker, who is a new FBI agent. She seems to have a bit of a sixth sense that she can just tell when something's wrong, or she has this really strong hunch. We
You ain't making it, brother.
we find out. Okay. Long story short.
You got 30 seconds.
Okay, so Longlegs is a serial killer. They're trying to find him. Lee has a connection to him, and in the end, what happens is, spoiler alert:
You got 10 seconds.
Longlegs is actually working for the devil. Lee's mom has been helping him the entire time, and they save.
Done.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Here's what I will say. About that. I think it's probably best to try to get the synopsis done under 5 minutes, so that we can talk a little bit more about like our personal feelings about the movie.
Okay.
If there is an entire like 10 to 15 minute section where you are explaining the plot,
Yeah.
probably takes away from. I just want us to give our opinions. I'm selfish that way.
That's why I tried.
You know what?
No one can say I didn't try.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think that's perfect. That's enough.
Okay.
Because Okay, so the movie, you're perfect. The movie.
Thank you.
It is a pretty. It gets complex, right? There's a lot going on underneath the surface.
Yeah.
But on the surface, that's pretty much what the movie was.
Yeah.
Serial killer. You find out it's an occult thing.
Yeah.
He's working for the devil.
There's supernatural elements, or there's not. Could or could not be.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about that.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, I also, and I'm going to blame it completely on this. I realized that we didn't say spoiler alert.
Oh,
So
I think if you guys don't know by now,
we'll put it all over the podcast itself.
Yeah.
We'll call this Spoilercast, so you're not confused.
always is.
Yeah. Always.
You think he spends half an hour talking, explaining the whole movie, and there's not going to be any spoilers?
Yeah. Anyway, as you were saying, I think it is better if we just get to our opinions on this movie.
Yeah.
More than anything else. Overall, what do you think? What do you think of Longlegs? Old Longlegs.
Old Longlegs. You want me to grade it now, or let me wait till later?
I kind of like grading it now. Actually,
The grade now?
give me your review, score, and a short snippet.
Snippet of what?
5 seconds or less. Go.
Don't flip it back on me.
Let's see how you do, Buster Brown.
No, I can't do it.
Yeah,
I can't do
No, just overall, how'd you enjoy or not enjoy Longlegs? After it's, I mean, we should say, I want to preface by saying Longlegs has been one of the most anticipated horror movies that I can really remember. It went really uber viral,
Yeah.
because of the marketing, which was really good and ominous, and actually did a really good job of not showing what it was even really about. It just looked creepy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that in the background, how did it live up or not live up to those?
Well, how did it live up to its virality?
Yeah.
I don't think it lived up to its virality.
Okay.
But I want to also say that I'm not one of these people that doesn't want to enjoy a horror movie, and I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, it didn't scare me, and I we've talked about that in the past, but I hate that attitude of going into a horror movie or a thriller or anything that's supposed to be like kind of mind bendy. Yeah, I hate that. I hate that attitude. So I'm not coming at it from that perspective, but I will say that the campaign, the ad campaign, and the marketing would have you believe that you're about to watch like. What was that? What was that cannibal movie from the 80s?
Cannibal Holocaust?
Cannibal Holocaust. Yeah, I mean, just the way that it was marketed was like, it's going to be like, it's going to stick with you.
You're going to throw up?
Yeah, like, and it just wasn't that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
Sure.
But I don't think that takes away from the movie itself, but I definitely think it was a little overhyped. It was a little overhyped.
Yeah.
I mean, because once like real people, not critics, once real people started seeing the movie and was talking about how it's not even scary so much as it is disturbing, and it's very disturbing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it has that sense of dread throughout it.
That's when I started to think like, okay, it's not going to be one of those like, you're not going to see a bunch of like super shocking like.
There's not many jump scares. I would really more so consider it a suspense movie than a horror movie.
Yeah. I think the jump scares were a little cheap in this one. I will say, I think they were a little...
Didn't really bother me that much. I didn't find like it was as cheap as like, a Blumhouse movie or something,
Yeah.
Like it wasn't as prevalent. It seemed like they did, at least for me, a pretty good job of establishing a tone and having that do the heavy lifting of the horror of it, and less so just a like sudden cut to,
yeah.
Oh, it's just you, kitty.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, there wasn't much of that, which I thought was like nice to see, and much more my speed of like, I don't know, more. It's like that elevated horror, if you will. I hate to say the term because it.
Yeah, it's becoming a thing, but
yeah, and sometimes the elevated horror thing doesn't really work, and it gets too stuffy and like up its own ass.
Right.
But I didn't feel that for Longlegs myself. I thought it was really well done. The biggest thing that came out from it was like, wow, that was a really well made movie.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do our categories: strengths, weaknesses, best part of the movie. Worst part of the movie. Yeah,
so let's start. You know what? Let's go with the strengths first because I feel like we're already there.
Yeah.
I thought it was, again, just a really well-paced, well-shot, well-executed movie, top to bottom. I really have no complaints as far as like the movie making of it. I thought it was all really handled like it felt like. By a deft hand, and it really surprised me because I don't know much about Oz Perkins.
Yeah,
like he wasn't really a name that I really knew much of, other than he was in like some crappy movies as an actor.
Yeah, I was looking at his IMDb and I was like, first of all, I was shocked at how many acting roles he had, and then he's directed a lot of movies, like. And I was reading some reviews and they're like, this is Oz Perkins' like most fully realized movie, and I was like, that's what made me look at his filmography because I was like, what do you mean? I thought this was his first movie.
That's what it seemed like to me too. I wasn't familiar. I wasn't
familiar with your game, bro.
But yeah, I mean, mark me impressed as the his debut for me. I really enjoyed this movie. I think the acting was good. I thought Micah Monroe did a really good job. I thought Blair Underwood as Agent Carter, her boss, was actually really likable.
He's fantastic
and great in that role. I mean, of course, Nicolas Cage being really weird and off-putting.
I think we should like spend a little bit of time on just Nick Cage right now. Okay. Or I mean, not right now, but at some point before we finish.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, I again, top to bottom, I thought it was a really well made, well acted, well scripted, well edited. Everything top to bottom was very, very solid. Was it my favorite horror movie of all time? No. Do I think it was the scariest movie of all time? No. Do I think it suffered from the hype and the early press and the early reactions and reviews, yeah. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Come
How
back
about
to
you?
that.
How about you?
That I think it's probably its biggest strength is the cinematography and the sense of dread and just the overall like fog that permeates the whole movie.
Yeah.
That, you know, we were talking off mic about, I watched it during the day, and even without the added sense of this is not how you watch a horror movie, I still was like stricken by the overall feeling of
Yeah.
it. I mean, there was times where I like felt myself sit up, and I was really like in it, you know.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that happens in the background, and there's things that there's ways that they like. There's one moment in the end where, you know, Blair Underwood's already possessed.
Yeah.
And he opens the door for the detective, for Lee. And as he closes it, there's just a flash of the devil in the mirror, in the reflection of the mirror. And if you blink, you miss it, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's moments where, like the way that it's shot, where Lee is focusing on something on her desk, or she's typing something, or she's thinking about something, and it's this wide shot where in any other traditional horror movie there would be something in the back, like somebody would walk by.
It's
or
all windows.
some weird thing. Yeah,
It's all windows. It's all open doors.
exactly. And someone's supposed to
Yeah.
pop out and freak you out in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
And that the restraint to not do that cheap stuff really elevates this movie. I
For sure.
thought. I mean,
For sure.
halfway through it, I was like, he got me, because like I was certain that something was going to pop up in the background. There was going to be a jump scare or something like
Yeah.
that, and it just never happens.
Yeah.
And it creates this suspense.
Yeah.
And it just leaves you like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? So I thought that his restraint to not go down those cheap avenues,
Yeah.
really, really elevated the movie.
For sure.
For
sure.
And the acting, yeah. I mean, you highlighted it, but the three main stars, they're fantastic. What's the girl's name? Who? Micah
Monroe, yeah.
I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Just crushes it.
Yep.
She's one of those, like, you know, she's weird for whatever reason, and we get into it in the movie why she's like antisocial and kind of
Sure.
twitchy and weird
Yeah.
and stuff. And it's like in a long line of gifted but broken
Yeah.
detectives or private investigators or whatever. Kind of a cliche character,
Yeah.
but she plays it really well. She does a fantastic job anchoring the movie.
The trappings of the storyline are cliched, but for some reason, and I think it has a lot to do with, like you're saying, the cinematography and the sense of dread, and also the twist. Kind of put a different spin on this tried and true genre.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I came into this not expecting a supernatural twist. I thought it was
No.
going to be much more of like a Silence of the Lambs thing. But the fact that there is that twist, and I can get why some people wouldn't like it so much, because it's like very rooted for the majority of the time, and then suddenly in the last act, it's like, oh, actually,
Yeah. Okay. I am torn about that.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about that.
Okay.
I'm torn about the supernatural twist. Because the genre bending is great, right? And I think that I think people are gonna look back on this movie and be. I think I was gonna say this at the end, but I guess I'll just say it now. I do think that Longlegs is gonna go down as like a horror classic.
yeah,
I do.
that's beautiful to look at.
It's it's gorgeous to look at.
Yeah.
The way that it's shot, the way that it's acted. I think that Gulden Draak, you know what I'm saying?
It's all right. Let the dragon talk.
I do think that it's gonna go down in. I think it's gonna go down in like horror history. I truly believe that. So I think that it's a strength to do what he did with the genre bending and everything, and the supernatural twist is great. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of torn because I really did like the fact that it was halfway through the movie. You're going, oh, so there's something otherworldly going on, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe there is with when they introduce the ball and finding the doll, and the girl.
The coroner says he can hear voices or something.
Yeah,
he puts the thing up against it,
and it
has like radio signals in it. Yeah,
and then the girl who's in the mental facility, her coming out of her catatonic state once they find the doll and everything. So you're starting to get this like voodoo, devil worshiper kind of thing. They're starting to allude to it.
Yeah.
I thought maybe a more clever thing would have been to kind of keep it grounded and make you think they were going in that direction and then kind of, But I don't think that it was so cheap in the way that they do introduce the supernatural elements that it like detracts from the movie. Yeah. But I don't know. I think I have to sit with it a little bit more to really have an opinion on that.
Yeah. Well, I saw it with Sherry, and immediately she's like, I didn't like that. But I mean, I won't speak for you, Sherry, but I think it was also because it was scary.
No one will speak for you.
No, I would never. But she asked me how did I like it, and I was like, I know I liked it. I just need to sit with it for a little bit. Yeah. Because I'm not sure, like, I'm still kind of figuring out how I really feel about every element of it. I know as a whole I like it, but I have to think about it a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely... There's not a lot of horror movies with a twist, I don't think, warrant a lot of rewatches.
Depends. I mean, usually if it's a big twist, like an M. Night Shyamalan thing, it's like, oh, well, I probably should watch it one more time so I could see if he cheated in any way.
Yeah, for sure. But it's funny you bring him up because he was the only example I was going to think of a twist movie that you would want to rewatch. Yeah. Because, especially in his earlier movies like Signs and The Sixth Sense, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
The Sixth Sense is I think The Sixth Sense is like a perfect twist movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you watch it and you pay attention, you can figure it out.
He didn't cheat.
And I think that is the golden rule of a twist. If you pay attention, you can figure it out. Yeah. And you know what? I'm just gonna say this personally. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why I don't like the song "Testify" by Common. I've talked about this before.
I've heard this one. Folks, strap in.
Listen. B is, I think, one of Common's best, if not his best album. Yeah. Came out in 2005, I believe, 2004, 2005. Majority produced by Kanye West and some tracks by Jay Dilla. It was considered by all accounts to be a resurgence for Common.
It was, yeah.
I think it's a nearly perfect album. But I think that Testify's a bad song. And the reason I think that is because that twist is bullshit. And it pissed me off the first time. I was 15 years old, and the first time I listened to it, I was like, that was bullshit. And I'm 34 now.
Can you explain what the twist is for people that don't know?
So the song is about a man who is on trial. He's a drug lord who's on trial. And it's basically about his wifey, is pleading with the justice system to not take her love away. That's what the sample keeps saying, before you lock my love away. And the whole song is basically these two different perspectives of like the drug lord and what he had done to be on trial, and his wife's perspective of being someone who is supporting a man who is on trial. And then at the very end of the song, he says, so the man gets convicted. He goes away for presumably the rest of his life. And the line is, she brought her face up laughing. That's when the prosecutor realized what happened. I can't remember the one bar, but then he says, when this bitch did the crime, the queen pin, And it's the last bar of the song.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the song to allude to the fact that like she could have been capable of doing any of this
Right.
stuff. She's basically a victim until you get to the very last bar of the song.
But actually, she did it.
Dude, and everyone lost their minds. And I remember he filmed a video for it. And Taraji P. Henson is in it. And it's like this big budget video.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I was just sitting there like, am I insane? Am I just being like an asshole about this? This is not a good song.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I have a big problem with twists that cheat.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just cheap.
Cheap
You know?
twist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheap twist is bad. Cheating twist is worse.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you get to the end and you just go, actually, it was the wife. And you're
Right.
like, yeah, but how would we have known that?
Yeah.
I think Gone Girl's really good with that, too.
Sure. Yeah.
Gone Girl's
Well,
really...
you know, speaking of Fincher, Fight Club.
Fight Club is, yeah. If you're paying attention in Fight Club, you could probably figure that one out.
Yeah.
Definitely on rewatch, you're like, oh, yeah, for sure.
Usual Suspects. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if Usual Suspects is... If you would be able to figure that one out.
I don't know. You know what? Now that I think about it, I'm not sure.
That one's a little harder.
But it's not. See, what I'm actually, now that I bring that up, there are exceptions to the rule, because in a movie that is all about that mystery going on in the background, and in that, like, I don't want to spoil Usual Suspects. If you haven't seen Usual Suspects, you should
I
watch
mean, here I'll put a spoiler alert for Usual Suspects if you haven't seen Usual Suspects.
just going into different lanes now.
Yeah.
But yeah, figuring out who Kaiser Soze is, it's still satisfying. You know, like it's still satisfying in a way that you're like, oh, okay. Like retroactively, you can put the pieces together and realize it wasn't cheated, but it wasn't necessarily obvious either. Like I don't think it would be really hard for somebody to put together the pieces before the reveal at the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and to that point, I think like Seven's ending, not so much of a twist, but a big reveal.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for there to be anything that alludes to that.
Sure.
Although I do think that there might be some like deeper reading that maybe I'm not even acknowledging that could have got us to that point.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he's doing, obviously he's doing seven deadly sins, and Brad Pitt's character in that movie could be interpreted as one of the seven deadly sins.
Yeah.
So
And therefore a target.
And so actually, I take it back. It's not a cheap twist.
No.
Could you know? So okay.
All that to say.
To bring it back to Longlegs.
Right.
I don't think it's a cheap twist.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I do think that there is, I think upon rewatch, it doesn't, I mean, maybe not in the beginning, but you can definitely start to get there, you know, towards like the halfway point. You can kind of start to get there.
Once the dolls are revealed, it becomes pretty evident that something supernatural is going on.
Something's amiss.
Right.
Something's afoot.
And Lee tells that to Agent Carter, and he's like, what are you talking about, like voodoo? Like, what are you talking about?
And he's like, get that bullshit out my face.
Right. And I think that works really well as a conduit for, like, us as the audience to be like, no.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that.
No, it can't be. Can't be
Yeah.
a voodoo thing.
Right. I will say one thing that I felt was a little bit predictable. I guess we can get into the...
Whoa. Okay, wait. Before we get into negatives.
Okay.
I need us to spend just like 2 minutes on Nick Cage.
Okay. All right.
And then we'll get into negatives.
I wasn't sure which way you're going with them.
I loved it.
Me too.
I loved it.
I've heard some people say he overdid it, or like...
No. I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
I loved every second of it. I thought, oh man, I was just enthralled by him. I thought,
I love the Dinosaur Jr.
yeah.
It's so
And
good.
he has a Transformer, the Lou Reed album.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. I thought it was an inspired choice to cast him in the first place.
He felt like an Anton Chigurh in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough of seeing him.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I needed more.
I think that was the right choice.
Yeah, it was good.
Again, this movie is all about restraint in its best elements. Because with that, with the last sort of scene of the family getting murdered after being possessed, like you don't see any of that happen really. It's like the best thing I can say about it. But anyway, yes, Nicolas Cage as Mr. Longlegs himself, I thought was fantastic.
Well, and I think that in a different movie, yes, maybe there was some overacting, and maybe there was maybe it was too much.
Nick
but
Cage, man, I mean, what do you want?
Exactly. And I think that that's why it's so perfect to have casted him in this.
Yeah.
And to have him play this character. I don't know if anybody else could have played it this way.
No.
And made it convincing while also being so over the top. I think that it needs to be that. It needs to be that in this movie for it to really kind of tie together. It has to be that.
Yeah.
I think that anybody who thinks that he overdid it, I don't know. I don't think that a more subdued performance would have worked, because I think that everyone else is giving a very good, under the surface, subdued performance. You need him to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He feels like an intruder in the movie. Like, he feels like wrong and out of place and weird.
Yeah.
In a way that's off-putting and scary at times, but always interesting. Like, I always want to know more about what was going on with him, because you don't really get a real backstory on him.
And I don't think that if he had given a more subtle performance, plot-wise, if there wasn't the accomplice that we find out in the end, if it was just Longlegs doing all of this stuff, then yes, I agree. His over-the-top, wild performance probably wouldn't have worked, because who is going to let a motherfucker like that into their house?
Right. Which is a plot point. It's like, who would let a stranger in?
And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Of course, he is a person who is a devil worshiper, and not just from a belief standpoint, but within the context of this movie, the devil is real and is speaking through him and Lee's mom, and using this device to possess people and everything. So it is revealed to be real, right?
Yeah.
You do need that. It works. It's creepy. It's off-putting. It's otherworldly. It's slightly askew.
Yeah.
It's just something not right.
Well, and they mentioned the Manson family too, which is a clear illusion that there is an accomplice. It's not him doing it; it's someone else.
Right. And
so they wink at you with that early on.
Well, even in the beginning, when they talk about how physical evidence-wise, he's never stepped foot in these houses.
Right.
That already sets off all your bells and alarms, not bells and whistles. Your alarms of going all right, how is he pulling this off?
Right.
Is there some kind of supernatural element to this, or is there an accomplice? And I also think that, and maybe I can kind of dip into negatives a little bit, but I do think that, I don't know, I'm still torn. Having an accomplice, a real world accomplice that is connected to Lee, the lead detective on this.
Yeah.
If that was just it, if that was the only twist, I think that would have sufficed. I think that would have been enough.
Yeah.
If she was the murderer, and if she had been convinced that Longlegs was stalking her and her family, and that Longlegs would murder her daughter if she didn't do what he asked her to do.
Yeah.
And so she became a serial killer to protect her child.
Yeah.
I think that's enough.
Well,
the supernatural element is kind of the cherry on top. And again, I'm still torn as to if it's even necessary.
And I have to rewatch it, but I feel like it works without it works to think of it as not even being supernatural, and it those supernatural elements only being in Lee's head, because clearly something's going on with her.
Yeah.
And her family, but the only thing that on surface value, what am I looking for?
Face value.
Face value. kind of breaks that hypothesis that I kind of hinted at earlier on in the episode about it actually not being supernatural is that in the end, Agent Carter is clearly possessed or something to kill his wife.
Yeah.
Like, no sane person would do it in that cold and callous way.
Right.
I could see it as like, okay, you know, she's saying that she's going to, Lee's mom is going to kill their daughter if he doesn't kill his wife. But clearly he was like out, you know, mental wise.
Yeah.
So that kind of breaks that theory or the opportunity for it to be ambiguous, which I would have appreciated more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is I think it's very clearly there was no like misinterpretation or weird perspective shift. It's like, no, he was possessed. I mean, he's you know, a doting father.
Yeah. We see them before, like in normal times.
Yeah, they're a beautiful family.
Yeah.
So for him to do what he did in cold blood,
yeah,
and just the way that he reacts when she comes in, which again I thought that was fantastic too, because he's so frightening.
Yeah.
At that end scene when he's like, sit down.
Yeah.
It's like he's and she's like, we got to cut the cakes, and he's like, we got to cut the motherfucking cakes because you fucking asked me to cut cakes and shit. He's like, we're going into the, and she says, we're going into the kitchen and then we'll be right back out, and he's like, I'll be back
You'll still be in the kitchen. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, well, Lee's definitely gonna save the wife, right?
No.
Didn't even try.
Well, and that's I'll say this is my last like positive that I want to add to the list is that it ends so brutally.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, it should end that way. That's the movie we're watching.
Yeah.
It is excuse me. It is the story of evil being passed down and continued through generations, and there really not being much hope. Evil will continue forever as long as humanity's around. Like, that's kind of the story, you know? Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And I thought the fact that it was so bleak up until the end, like continuing at the very end where it's like, Lee won, kinda, you know? She saved the kid.
She saved the kid, but did she really win? Because she wasn't able to destroy the doll.
Right.
Because there's something weird about that. Like, her gun doesn't fire, even though it's a revolver. That was weird.
Right.
And there's still that level of, like, how much control does the devil still have on her?
Right. And as Longlegs said, like, he's gonna be everywhere now.
Yeah.
It's like a Jedi thing.
Yeah.
Strike you down now.
I thought he was this is a very silly thought. But when he said that, I thought he was gonna blow up.
Oh, okay.
Because when he said
I'm
that,
gonna
I was
be
like,
everywhere.
I thought he meant spiritually and literally.
Yeah.
Because when he starts smashing his head into the desk, he does kind of get everywhere. Like his blood and brain matter does, or face matter, does kind of get everywhere. And it gets on her and everything. So I thought he had like... It was really dumb, okay? I get it. But I was sitting there
Big
going
Trouble
like,
in
is he
Little
going to
China
blow up?
just...
Yeah. And I thought, like, is he going to explode? So, yeah, that was stupid. But, I did have that thought.
That's okay. Yeah. That's all right. Speaking of thoughts, I want you to start on our negatives list.
Negatives.
Yeah.
Negatives. I mean... I think that we've already kind of alluded to some of them. I mean, I'm still torn on the supernatural element, so I can't say if that's a positive or negative. I'll say that it was a very well done, like, moody thriller.
Yeah.
But was it scary? No. And again, I don't want to check off on the movie because of the marketing.
Yeah.
But
it plays a factor, though.
It does.
Yeah.
And going into it thinking I should watch this in the daytime because it's going to be so disturbing, so scary.
Yeah.
And just like not feeling not feeling that as far as like a horror movie. I was like, I mean, it's really good, but like, is it scary?
Right.
It's not. Yeah, it's not really that scary. It's a great thriller.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dude. I don't know if there's anything else that I really didn't like about the movie.
Yeah, I think for me.
Oh! I didn't. I will say, like, from like a plot point.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? Kind of thing. They would have 100% taken her off the case.
Yeah.
There's just no way that they just let her continue to do what she's doing.
Hey, Lee, you have a personal attachment to this
Well,
character?
you're done. You're out of here.
Yeah.
You're not going to be... What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, you were one of the kids who almost got murdered? Guess what? You're out of here, buddy.
Yeah.
You're done.
Right.
Yeah, I did think that... First of all, I felt like... I don't know. It felt... Her being an FBI agent was a little bit of a stretch. I think her being like a PI or like some kind of weird clairvoyant would have made a little bit more sense. Her being a fully trained FBI agent and also being like who she is in the movie is a little hard to take in.
It seemed like they kind of brushed that off in the story itself by saying, like, I think it was Longlegs talking about it, that like, oh, we joked about when you went into being a cop, and went to law enforcement. We thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it was almost part of the plan to have
Well,
her.
there is that moment where she's talking to her mom, and her mom is like, "You were allowed to grow up,"
Right?
And she's like, "What do you
What
mean
do you mean by
allowed?"
that? Yeah.
And then that does come back later, and it's
Right.
like, well, you could have died.
Yeah.
And you were allowed to grow up.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, from like logistically, she grew up with Longlegs living in her basement.
Right.
As an FBI agent, she never even thought to go into the basement at all.
Well, they said that the doll told
Warped her, right? Yeah.
what to remember and what to forget.
I get that, but then okay, so then there's okay, now we have to make sense of why is she investigating it in the first place? If the doll is preventing her from remembering things, at what why is she investigating this thing? Why is she's obviously discovering her connection to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
How much power does the doll have on her memory?
Yeah.
At what point does it stop her memory? At what point, like, it just doesn't logically.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The through line doesn't go all the way through.
I almost started to think it may have been like a thing where, like, if you're not close to the doll, like, it kind of stops being as effective.
Yeah.
Because she mentions that, or her mom mentions that she hasn't, like, seen her in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
There's clearly distress.
Are you
between
saying
them.
your prayers? The prayers thing was.
Yeah. All that stuff.
Also, the question about the tech. Let's get into it from a technical standpoint, okay?
Sure.
So, does Longlegs speak to the devil? Creates these balls, right?
Uh-huh.
And then he puts them in the dolls. The dolls gets into the house, and then they possess the dad, and the dad murders the family. What is the power of the?
It sounds like it just enhances the negativity within you, kinda.
Yeah, like an Amityville horror kind of thing.
Kinda. Yeah, that's what it seemed like from the flashback that we see the family murder, or the dad murder the family, I should say.
Yeah.
And
that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was shot.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah. From the doll's POV.
Yeah.
That's really good. But yeah, there are a lot of questions that are left unanswered. Now, I do think opening it up to the supernatural does kind of hand wash it a little bit.
Yeah.
If you don't, like, as long as you don't get stuck on those things, it's fine. Like, you don't got to worry. Like, how did that happen? The devil did it. You know, like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can definitely get hung up on those things. I agree.
Yeah. No, you're right. Do the supernatural, but the thing is, that's why I'm still torn about that, because any supernatural element can always be chalked up to the devil did it.
The devil did it, yeah.
Diddy did it. And it's and sometimes that's not fair. Sometimes you spend an hour and a half with a movie,
Yeah.
and then in the last 10 minutes you go, "Oh, they're actually the devil," and I feel like that's kind of cheap.
I could see why people get frustrated at that, and why I think this movie has become kind of divisive. But it didn't really bother me so much because I think I'm kind of primed for that sort of storytelling through Twin Peaks, and the ilk of such things. Alan Wake.
Yeah.
People call this an Alan Wake movie, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's realism smacked up against supernatural elements, and I mean, you kind of have to take it or leave it at a certain point. And yeah, I mean, I will say that didn't really take me out of it. I do think, since we were just talking about it, it made me remember the fact that Agent Carter's family ended up being the last victims of this thing. Highly predictable.
Yeah.
As soon as we saw him and his little girl, I was like,
"Oh yeah,
that's what's gonna happen."
Yeah.
Like it's obvious that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, very clearly.
So that for me, I was like, it's a little lazy. I don't know. I mean, I don't see how you write around that, but you definitely could.
Yeah.
So that to me fell a little flat. Other than that, like I can't really. Well, I'll agree with you on the marketing side of things. Like, I think the viral marketing and the I don't know, the people saying it's the scariest thing of all time did it a disservice for me.
Yeah.
I would have I wish I could have seen the movie in those early preview screenings.
Yeah.
Because I think my impression of it would be like that much higher.
Yeah.
But at this late date, I still enjoyed it. Despite that, is there anything else that was sticking out to you as like a negative?
No.
Yeah.
No, not really. No.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not really.
Well,
I think Barbarian is a really good example of a movie that does like disturbing and also scary.
Yeah.
And also like logistically makes sense.
It's much more of a traditional horror movie though too.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah.
And yeah, when you as a filmmaker are going, I'm gonna make a thriller. It's gonna be a horror thriller. That definitely puts you in a different category.
Crime horror thriller.
Yeah, it's basically a police procedural for like 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes like there's flashes of it being a horror movie.
Yeah.
And then there's like thriller aspects of it. The idea of like bending all of those things. I mean, I've read some reviews that some critics were like was a little ambitious to try to put all of that stuff together.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think he does it pretty well.
Yeah.
I think I personally like a police procedural that gets into that. Silence of the Lambs is obviously like the upper echelon of like a police procedural / thriller / kind of horror movie. I mean, when you think about it, it's not like a supernatural horror movie, but a fucking
it's horrific.
It's a horrifying movie.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect movie, and I think it bends all those genres pretty well. And I think that a lot of like horror auteurs don't take that risk as often as they could.
Yeah.
And this movie really shows that, like, if you have an artistic eye for that kind of stuff, as well as like an ambitious idea that you want to go with, it can turn out pretty well.
Sure, and a good small cast.
Yeah,
it wasn't this huge ensemble. It's like half a page on Google.
Yeah, and it's
everybody in this movie,
dude, and it's smart. I said it at the top, but I think the casting of Nick Cage is so inspired. I think it's such a bold choice, but it works out really well. Blair Underwood is such a good actor. He's so consistent throughout his entire career. Yeah. To use him as the superior, and then
he's like the anchor of the movie too.
Yeah, And then to have this very talented actress kind of be the person that like you see the movie through her POV.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it really he really nailed it when it comes to that.
Yeah.
The perspective of the movie. He really nailed that.
Yeah.
You know?
Agreed. Well, as we do, after getting into the muck,
The muck.
the negativity, we want to end on a high note. That being our favorite element of this movie. Marco, I will let you go first.
I think it's got to be just the way that it's shot, man.
Yeah.
The cinematography of it, the vibe of the movie. I didn't even get to mention. I did write it down. I had some notes actually.
Oh, wow.
I wrote some notes.
That's great.
I got into pretty much all of them. Oh, except for the opening shot of the cop getting shot by the dad was insane.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you this: I was sitting on the couch and I was kind of scrolling a little bit, and then pop, and I was like, what? And I put my phone away and I was like, all right, you got
It
me.
starts so slow, and then suddenly...
I was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool.
Hey,
Cool.
Lee,
666.
calm down.
Yeah, it's like
it's fine. I'll go.
and then he just gets fucking blasted. I think that the opening credits. Okay, I this was another thing I didn't mention. Why is this movie so fucking cool?
Yeah, I know.
Why is this movie so fucking
Great
cool?
soundtrack.
Great soundtrack. The way that it's shot is really
Yeah.
like not just beautiful, but like it's like if it wasn't a disturbing horror movie,
Yeah.
it could just be like an artsy, cool movie.
Yeah,
It's
The,
shot
like,
so.
and the graphic design and stuff, and the fact that the aspect ratio changes for the flashbacks.
Yeah.
It-
It's like a reel. It's
Yeah.
like a.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Very
really cool movie.
Very cool.
And I was like, what's happening right
Yeah.
now? Like, why am I into this?
yeah, and then the end credits too. It's like, oh,
Yeah. You got fucking T-Rex playing, and
Perfect.
you're like, this is great.
yeah,
Yeah. So, I think the highlight of it is the overall vibe of it. I mean, it's just like a really endearing, like cool movie. On top of being like this disturbing, fucked up horror
Yeah,
movie, it's
yeah.
like it's fucking cool.
Well, and I think that is the element. I just want to preface by saying I agree, and that's also my my favorite of this movie. But I think that element it's what's going to keep this movie from being unrewatchable because of its heavy subject matter, because it's very dark and daunting storytelling wise. It could be hard for people to come back to a lot because it's heavy.
Yeah.
Can be. But the fact that there's such a good kind of fun 70s midnight screening kind of feel to, like
Yeah,
grungy,
yeah.
dirty feel to it.
Yeah.
I think makes it and the beautiful like shooting of it. I think that's going to keep at least me coming back to rewatch this one. So yes, agreed. Big agree. All that being said, I mean, what more can we say about Longlegs other than what the score is going to be?
I think we said it all. So I got to give it a 5.5 out of 6. I really truly think that it's going to stand the test of time. It's going to be a movie that we kind of like Barbarian. I think that Barbarian is another movie that's going to be like looked back upon very favorably. You know, people are like, oh, the like classic horror movies from like the 2010s and like the aughts, the late blah 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 blah. Like these are gonna be our movies that we show our kids. Like you ain't
2020s.
seen nothing.
Yeah,
Till you seen
something-
Barbarian.
You want to see something weird?
You want to see a weird movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's 5.5. I think it's fantastic. Just the little nitpicks here and there keep it from being like a perfect 6 out of 6.
Yes.
But yeah.
Couldn't agree more. 5.5 for me as well. I think it will be a favorite to go back to, specifically in the subgenre of like crime thriller or supernatural crime thriller. There's not enough of those. I would like to see much more of those.
Yeah. Definitely.
Guess more police procedurals too. Like,
Right.
Where'd that go? I feel like it went away in the 90s or early 2000s. Like,
Yeah. And that's why this movie's probably set in the 90s because
Yeah.
they were like, that's the last time you could do a cool police procedural
Sure.
like this.
Yeah.
Without having to deal with cell phones and
Yeah.
GPS tracking and
just feels right.
landlines. Landlines are creepy, man.
They
Landlines
are, yeah.
are creepy.
Yeah.
Picking up the phone and not
Payphone?
knowing who's on the other end.
Use a payphone?
Yeah, that's fucked up. It's fucked up.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Well, that's all you got to say on it.
That's all I got to say.
That's all I got to say about it as well. This has been the One Reel In podcast, and that's a wrap.
There it is.
Uh-huh.
Smooth.
On it.
Let's all go to the beach. Let's all go to the beach. Let's all go to the beach. To get ourselves a treat.